Oh, yeah.
See, now I have started recording. You can put this at the end as bloopers.
Hey, even better. See, now we've got so much to play with
So much
now.
extra
Wow,
content.
this is the way to do it. This fast and loose. Who knew? Instead of
Oh,
my
I think V
instead
and
of my
I knew.
draconian method.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
this is the girl pod method. This is the girl
this
pod
is the girl
method of
problem
recording a podcast.
method. Well, let's see how this goes. We'll see how the Game of Social Club Weekly News podcast handles it. Speaking of which, yes, hello everybody. Welcome to the Game of Social Club Weekly News podcast. We are recording on Thursday, the 19th of March, 2026. And we are going to be talking about a bunch of different topics today, including DLSS 5 and the news and reaction to that, Crimson Desert and the plethora of reviews that are already permeating around the internet. Starfield coming to PS5, as well as a bunch of updates to look forward to, and maybe some more. We've got loads of things to discuss, and we've got a full squad today as well. Of course, I'm your host, Harry Glyn Jones, aka Knavish Crayfish. And actually, running the episode today due to some technical issues on my half, we have we get the host, one of the hostesses of Girl Pod, Candy. How are you doing, Candy?
I'm doing well. I'm here. It's a Thursday. I'm happy to join you all. I think this is the first time I've been on with Mark too, so it's exciting.
We're gonna have
Indeed.
a fight
Yep, yep.
about roguelikes. We're gonna have a roguelike fight.
No, because now we've bonded over visual novels.
Oh, okay, okay.
Ah, common
Roguelike
ground.
fight is saved for girl pod when Mark comes onto girl pod.
You.
You wear me down one day.
Exactly. And yeah, of course, that means, yeah, we've also got our very own Steam Deck verified Mark, aka We Are Working the Hive. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Harry. Really good. So Steam Deck verified, and now Switch 2 verified, I guess. So been
Hey.
full handheld. So this turned up a couple of days ago. So a few things to say this week about that, but good to be back on the podcast. It's been a few weeks, but yeah, going full handheld at the moment, which is nice.
Excellent. Yeah, looking forward to hearing more about that. And then, of course, filling out the team, we have, as always, no empathy, only daggers. It's Lady V. How you doing, V?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm just waiting for Mark to now get a ROG ally and denounce all consoles and only be handheld from now on. Like the next time we see him, he'll just have all of the handhelds, like and nothing
Handheld
else.
pills.
I've only got two hands. I can only need two.
You need to get them all set up how like everyone used to do that with all the phones they bought to play Pokemon Go. So you've got like all three tablets like stacked on top of each other, and you've got three different games going all at once.
Start to look like
Or
a
like how the
bot
kid,
farm.
how all the kids, how every child now requires like at least like two different pieces of footage, so they're like listening to something as they're watching like Subway Surfers or something like that. So it's just several screens of different content. But yeah, of course, we'll be getting to all the things that we've been playing and all the other sort of content adjacent stuff. Before we get to all that, though, of course, we have our regular rigmarole. We are just a few members of the Gamer Social Club, which is a website covering gaming news, reviews, previews, editorials, interviews, guides, and whatever else we can think of, including our own inventions like the Gammo Disc, our monthly article that goes up with a range of demos for you to check out of games that are out and coming up soon, sort of harkening back to the demo discs of yore. You can find all of our content over on www.gamersocialclub.ca. We really appreciate if you go and check out everything there. And any articles that we mentioned will be linked below in the description. Three things you should know about us as a site. Number one, we are a grassroots and independent outlet. We have no higher ups to have to deal with. We are fueled by our own passion and love of gaming and wanting to share that with all of you. Number two, we finish every game that we review. We will roll credits on it. And if we can't do that for whatever reason, if it's a funny old game like a sports game or a racing game that won't let us do that, we will play as much of it as we can before we share our opinions, our score, and all that with you. And third and finally, we run all of our news through a rumor-free filter. So any news you get from us, you can be sure is coming from a sort of trustworthy source. We don't go searching for stuff on the Reddit rumor mill or on social media. We try and get it direct from, trustworthy sources, and we will keep it updated as best we can going forward, if need be. And also we will correct anything that we do making mistakes on. Of course, if you want more Gamer Social Club stuff, you can obviously like and comment on this video here, and then of course subscribe to the channel to get more Gamer Social Club Weekly News podcast, and also our sister show hosted by Candy V and Bright, which is of course GSC Girl Pod. And you can then also join the Gamer Social Club Discord. Again, you can find the link for that down below to come and hang out, join in community game nights. We do giveaways every now and then. And yeah, nice little growing community, which is, really nice to see. And of course, follow us on socials. So for the site, you've got us on Twitter/X at gamer_s_c, and everywhere else we are at Gamer Social Club. Just give us a search. You'll find us on Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook, wherever. Yeah, and then all of that I've just mentioned, you can find down below in the description. So if you're looking for any links to anything or any of our socials, whatever it was, you'll find all that down below. And yeah, with that, we will move on to our first segment, as always, which is what we have been playing. And let's see, we haven't had Mark on the show for a while, that's for sure. And of course, you've got quite a lot to talk about, Mark. So why don't we start with you? What have you been playing?
Cheers, Harry. It's been several weeks since been here, and in that time, to be honest, I've done very little more than playing a bit more Mass Effect and absolutely binging the hell out of Life is Strange again, and getting ready for Reunion, which comes out just a week, and I'm literally ticking off the days now because I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
So been going back, starting with the original with Max and Chloe. So I love the original game so much, and admittedly, I think this is kind of okay spoiler territory now. The game's 11 years old, but having played through it twice and killed Chloe twice, I still feel like I need to make these decisions, and I know Candy is a Chloe hater, so probably won't be backing up the podcast. So got to the end of the game for the second time and thought, I'm just gonna have to get rid of her again.
Who knew such a series have such a sort of like positive dialogue around it?
To be fair, she does suck.
Thank you. Yes.
I have no idea, unfortunately.
She is always hurtling herself towards death. You can't tell me otherwise. This timeline, alternate timeline, it's always happening.
That is unfortunate.
Got more lives than a cat, Chloe. But I'm obviously intrigued to see how they're going to weave her back in for the finale and Reunion in a week's time. But just today, finished another playthrough of Double Exposure, which is the most recent before Reunion. Was completely Chloe free, but it was my first playthrough of Double Exposure. I've been putting it off for a little while, and it just seemed that the perfect opportunity to dive in. But I had a really good time with it, and I think because it was more of a story on Max, who is the main protagonist of the series, and most of the games in the series, and it just kind of cemented that I really think she's one of the modern great game heroines. Well, can be anti-hero depending on how you play in certain regards, but
yeah, of course, interesting. Yeah.
She was just in terms of, the gameplay, Life is Strange, it's very kind of narrative based. That there's not all too much to say if you've played. I guess if I was to compare it to another game, it probably something around the likes of the Telltale series. So very narrative focused, decision making, and kind of limited walking around smaller environments. But the setting for Double Exposure at a university, which is a bit later in Max's life, was really well suited. Some of the side characters in there, her best friend Safi, which a lot of the game gravitates around, was probably one of the best side characters that I think the whole series of Life is Strange has had, and glad to see that she is going to be returning for the finale. And that's not a spoiler because it's been all over social media today, so I'm not bringing that spoiler news myself, but really glad. And I think the way that they finished off the post-credit scene sets up what's going to be a really fantastic reunion. And it's just nice because obviously the original and its prequel, Before the Storm, look quite dated games now. They've got like a very dated look. Still fine fundamentally, but the way that Deck 9, who took on Life is Strange and kind of built a whole new graphics engine for it and made it all everyone look a bit different, a bit more modern. It's just a really good look, and Had a great time with Double Exposure. And just a week to go, and then I'll get my box of tissues out because I'm told that Reunion is a love story. People are going to die. University is going to burn down. So it's going to be quite an emotional ride, I think, but I can't wait. And I know that's one Candy's looking forward to as well.
I am. I think
Yeah.
it's funny. I think the most unbelievable thing in Double Exposure for me was there's a scene where you have to find like the birth year or death year of some author. And I kid you not, because I streamed the whole thing, there's somewhere me yelling about how unrealistic it is that I had to go to the library to find out when this guy died and I couldn't just look it up on the phone that is in my pocket. I was like, these characters are not going to the library, they're looking it up on their phone. Why can I not do this? Now, mind you, this is a game where there's parallel timelines and superpowers, and I'm complaining that like the most unrealistic thing is going to the library. But very well written games. So I know when it came out it was like really divisive. So it's kind of nice to hear that people who are playing it so much after all of that are having a good time. And I do kind of feel like it was a lead into whatever this next story ends up being, like playing with the timelines to get to that point and bringing Chloe back into the fold.
Yeah, the Life is Strange series is one that I've yet to sort of dip my toe into. Early on, it's because I wasn't very familiar with the sort of games they were. Like, your narrative-driven kind of pieces, like, the Walking Dead series, like the Telltale stuff is how I sort of would relate it to at that time. And yeah, it never really knew much about it. And then I tried out Tell Me Why, which I believe was the one that launched exclusively at first on Xbox. Was like, I think a bit shorter, maybe it was like only 3 episodes. But I really, really enjoyed that. And I know it's a bit different maybe from the others with the fact I know it's got like its own sort of thing going on, but it's more like about the sort of the folklore and sort of like a mystical kind of thing as opposed to a kind of like a superpower kind of thing that I feel like Life is Strange is more about. I don't know if I'm getting just like mixed messages there, but yeah, definitely like would be cool to try this out, knowing that this is kind of like the end of like an arc at least, which is kind of cool.
I'm going to gift you 2, Harry, because that's a standalone, and so you haven't got to get in for the full hog. And 2 is just the best. Two is
2 is so good.
Mark's got Steam open. He's looking at the Steam spring sale. He's like, please take gifts of games.
No, 2 is,
That's
I
very
agree.
kind.
2 is my
2
favorite.
is.
Two is the first game in a long, long time that actually had me in tears by the end of it. And it is not
Wow.
like I'm not a crier or emotional like that by nature, but I was in tears to the point that Sean walked over and was like, what is happening? Like, you don't cry. And I was just, especially if you have a sibling, if you happen to be the older sibling or have been like maybe the one that cares for the siblings, be they older or younger, it just hits in a very specific way. And then the setting and what's happening, unfortunately, is very parallel to what's happening in my country now. So a lot of things that just, they hit in a very specific way. I went through so many emotions with that game. I don't know that I could do it again, but I highly recommend people do it at least once.
Yeah. I'll definitely have to do that. Thank you, both of you. You've definitely, convinced me to check out 2, if anything. But yeah.
And it was
Anyway.
me and Mark team up. Who knew?
No one expected it. This episode's full of surprises.
The Life is Strange team.
We're getting closer.
Well, then, Candy, how about you? What have you been playing?
So one game that I've been playing for review that I can't really talk about, it is a literary one. So when it comes out, I will also talk more about the book. But the game that I will talk about is Slay the Spire 2, because I have been playing that in between anything else that I could do. I'm like, okay, even I was playing some demos the other day for the demo disc. And then I was like, you know what will end out this stream really nicely? Slay the Spire run.
Do it now.
Nice.
So I still couldn't stay away. But no, I am nowhere near as good as V is, but I am enjoying just unlocking things to the point where there's some days where some runs where I'm just like, I know that I cannot get a good build going on this right now, but I'm just going to go as far as I can because I want to unlock all of the things on the timeline, and this is just done by points. So I'm going to stop building anything that makes sense to beat the whole run. I'm just trying to maximize points at this point, like whatever. And I think I've unlocked probably a little more than half of everything, if not more. I haven't had as much time to play as I wanted to, but it's everything that the first one was and more, and it is harder to some extent, but the graphics are good. They have they have trolled a little bit in the timeline as well, because everything in the timeline is like placeholder images, right? Or not everything, but a good chunk of placeholder images. There's at least 2 that are placeholder images for placeholders. Like it's like, this is a placeholder for a placeholder. I was like, are you kidding me? I've been trolled. What? And all the placeholder images look like crayons, and it's just it's like whose 5-year-old drew this? I love it, and I will be almost sad when these are gone because this is early access. But I think that's also the joy of playing games in early access. You see the evolution of things.
Do you think they'll do what we did with the first one, whereas you can switch on the early access images for the cards? And this is well, like, you do not need AI placeholder images. Just get someone to draw in crayon. Everyone will like it more.
I hope they do, because that's the one thing that I sort of miss. Different game, obviously, but from like Hades 2, because I played it in a technical test, and then I played it early access, and then I played it full release. There were things that were built specifically for those like builds, right? So there was stuff that you could only see if you were really in the technical test, where they were like, this is as far as you could go back to the beginning, right? And there were scenes that were built into some of this stuff. So I hope that, and then when you get the full game, it's gone. But I hope that Slay the Spire 2 and Mega Crit like give you that option to go back to it and to see it if maybe you missed it because maybe you just weren't that good at the game yet, or maybe you didn't know that deck building roguelikes were your thing and now you're exploring. So I hope that they give some option to do that. It adds to the fun of the game, I think. That moment of like, they trolled me, and I laughed about it for a good 2 minutes because I just thought it was hysterical.
That's great fun. I love that. Well, yeah, and hopefully they do keep that in as a sort of like a toggle, even just to be like, hey, play it in early access mode with the original artworks.
I'm all for the original artwork.
Yeah, I like that. Again, it's the sort of stuff that you might get back, when games had cheat codes or something like, or unlockables, where you'd go back. Yeah, you could play through the game again instead of having all the 3D models for the first person shooter. Instead, it just had like the placards of like almost like cutout enemies that you would then just shoot instead, and things like that. And, that sort of stuff's really fun. So yeah, it'd be lovely if they kept that. And of course, Slay the Spire 2 just doing crazy numbers all over the place, and obviously richly deserved. And again, it's in early access, so this is just the beginning.
I'm very glad for them. Very, very happy. Sorry, Marathon, for launching on the same day, but I saw the tweets. I mean, even the Mega Crit people were like, we didn't mean this to be mean. We were just
no, and it was very funny.
I've spoken to the guys at Mega Crit, and I can't imagine they would mean it maliciously at all. They're lovely, lovely people. So
I'm sure they knew that. I'm sure they felt that their game was going to do great because their first game has got such a. Even if you didn't play it at the time, it has such a reputation that there are even just going to be people who are just drawn to it by the sheer idea that there's another one. Like, oh man, like this is a big deal. I want to check this out. But still, it was drastic.
Even if you've not played the first Slay the Spire, you are aware of the fact that it exists by the plethora of things that are just like deck building elements in it. Like, I don't know, like put cards in it, it'll be great. People love cards.
Well, now it's a board game too, so if you're a board gamer, there's a lot of ways for people to get into Slay the Spire, and the Slay the Spire board game is co-op, which the original Slay the Spire doesn't have. So if you're like, well, I want to play a co-op and I want to play a video game version, then your only option is now the second one.
Yeah.
We have to do a multiplayer run, Candy. We must.
I still haven't done a multiplayer, so I'm waiting for the right
go.
time.
Absolutely. Yeah, look forward to seeing that. And then, yeah, how about you then, V? What have you been playing? 'Cause it's not Slay the Spire 2, I guess, or not as
Well,
much.
no, I have been playing some Slay the Spire 2. I've played many hours of Slay the Spire 2. I have cleared all of all 3 acts with all of the characters available. I did that like 2 days after it came out though. I was like, damn, I need this in my life. This is all I've been waiting for. Like I'm like cancel all of my appointments with my therapist. I don't need therapy anymore. I only need Slay the Spire 2. Um I think I was on call with Candy, or I was streaming it in the Gamer Social Club video game night chat when I got my first win with my boy, the Defect, who we love. I'm wearing a Defect t-shirt because he's my favorite. And I was definitely on a call with Harry talking about stuff when I got my run in with the Regent and potentially also the Necrobinder. I think I did them back to back.
You did.
I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so exciting. So I have been playing some Slay the Spire too. And a little bit of Pokemon Fire Red in keeping with handheld stuff. I got a full on shiny Geodude and I almost dropped my Switch 2 onto the floor.
Oh, no.
It was an experience. And now I have a Graveler in my party, which is probably not optimum, but it's my first full on shiny and I've been playing Pokemon since I was like a very small child. So I'm like, she has to be with us. Geogal, the Graveler. Um But
Love it.
mostly this week, I have been playing a game that doesn't come out till next Thursday. So, unfortunately, listeners will not be able to play it, although there is a teaser demo. But the reviews went out today. And it's a little indie horror title called Project Songbird. So I've been playing that for review. Review is up on the site.
Our
I am
resident
not very
horror
good.
specialist.
I'm not very good at horror games. I am afraid of everything. I am the most afraid person on the planet. I have nightmares about anything. Just anything that crosses my path in a day. I'm like 3 a.m. I'm like so obviously I'm the person that you would send a horror game to. Although I do think it is a good thing because I would say that a lot of people who are like veteran horror fans maybe don't necessarily give smaller little horror titles enough time, or like maybe a little bit of grace, and the fact that it's a if you're not afraid of it, then like you're going to maybe be bored by it. I'm not entirely sure, but no, I had a good time with it. There were some odd design decisions here and there. There was I don't want to spoil too much because obviously it's a small and it's a narrative story, so it's only about 5 hours long. It's on Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox, so you pick up on all of them. But there's a few little choices that I was like, I'm not sure about this. This is sort of removed a bit of the horror for me, which is a big ask to do because, as I said, I am genuinely afraid of everything. But I had fun with it. There was one particular jump scare. It doesn't have a lot of jump scares, so it doesn't rely on jump scares for the horror, which I did appreciate because I'm not a jump scare fan. And I do think it's a sort of cheap way to get a scare out of someone. But there was one particular jump scare that happens during the first act that is very well earned. One of the things I like wasn't too much of a fan of is the fact that there's a lot of mannequins, and I just think that's a very overdone horror trope. And I was kind of unsure why they were there, apart from the fact that mannequins are weird and creepy. And I was like, yes, I absolutely get that. But there is one particular bit in the first act with a mannequin that just fully got me. I was like, oh, I'm actually fine. This game isn't too difficult. The enemies are like pretty reasonable in terms of how quickly they move, and it's not going to be too bad. And then the noise that I made by myself in my own flat was highly embarrassing. I'm very glad when I was recording my gameplay that I was not recording any of my audio input because yeah, it was not a flattering noise by any means. And I just have to put the controller down for a moment or two, just be like, okay, right, we're chill. It's completely chill. And and it does have a few of those moments, again, not necessarily with jump scares. There is a very good sort of, I would say it's almost like a set piece. It's not like a cutscene or anything like that, but there's a very good sort of puzzle moment. And I won't say where it is. If you play the game, you'll know it when you get to it. That I wasn't entirely sure what was happening at first. And then when I realized what was happening, I was like, oh no, I hate this. This is terrible. I'm so stressed. And I was just like, I don't know if I can push through the stress to get past this point to finish this game so I can do it for review. Like, no. Like, but yeah, it was good fun. Again, it's a really small game. It's a solo dev with like a support team. So Connor Rush is the dev of it. It tells a very good story. It definitely earns like it's narrative. It's all about grief, which I suppose quite a lot of horror games are, and the sort of trauma that comes along with it and moving through that trauma. And it has an absolutely banger soundtrack. If you're looking for little indie bands and artists that you've never heard of, you play as a musician. And between each act, at the start of each act, there's like 3 vinyls on your desk that you can play, and they're all real artists and real songs that they've got the rights for tiny little bands. And you can just put them on the vinyl player, and you'll get like a little blurb about the song and why it's a good song, like from the character. And then you can just go and like look up those bands and find their tracks and stuff, which I thought was a really nice touch. Like indie artists supporting other indie artists, especially because the whole game is about a musician. So it was good. I think there's maybe some balancing that could be done, especially towards the end of the game. But it's got some time to do some patches and stuff, and I'm sure if you're a horror fan, then you will appreciate it. And even as a non-horror fan, it wasn't so terrifying that I couldn't finish it. So I think, if you're trying to get outside of your genre box a little bit, I'd recommend giving it a look.
Oh, interesting. I like the musician angle. That I think gives it some cool texture, and I imagine, well, would hope sets up some cool, interesting, like more kind of particular situations or events in the storyline and things like that because of that. I mean, does music kind of feature then like in the rest of it, or is it just used to kind of like punctuate things and just kind of give your character a bit of depth?
Well, you are trying. You're in a cabin in the woods to try and write your newest album, because your audience has not responded well to the music that you've put out after like a tragic loss in your family. So your character is obviously trying to process their grief through their artistry, but their audience is like, we hate this. So you go to the cabin to try and sort of like force yourself out of that rut and create the music that your audience wants. And I think is a little bit of a so I will say, like, after at the end of like the first act, when you get out of like this sort of surrealist world, where you're being sort of chased by all these monsters and things like that, and all the horror is happening, you wake up and you have recorded like 3 new songs that are like in the vein of what your audience would want them to be.
Right.
So it's a bit like, what is the cost of art, and like sacrificing your own want to do art and your own artistry for an audience. I think there's like that, a bit of the narrative that cuts through it in that way, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, that does sound cool. I like that. And again, like kind of plays on that kind of cliche of an artist or a band disappearing off into the mountains or going to a deserted
Yeah.
cottage somewhere. Like everybody's done it from like Led Zeppelin to Bon Iver. Like at some point or another, people went to go and find themselves and produce their next greatest album or something. So yeah, I really like that kind of take on that whole thing. Definitely want to check that out. But yeah, I have been playing a couple of things that are well, one of which is under embargo. I think will be releasing next week. But the one thing I have been playing is a game that came out into early access, much like Slay the Spires 2, called Fallen Tier: The Ascension. A beautiful, sort of very lush pixel art Metroidvania, 2D Metroidvania, which, as I said, was in early access, so it's not finished, and there's only so many regions, so many bosses, and things like that. But a lot of the game's systems are fully implemented, so you know, all the different ways of progression and things like that are in there. And as I said in I did a sort of early access review of it, but I haven't scored it because again we haven't finished the game, haven't rolled credits. So when the game fully releases at one point, I will hopefully get around to being able to do that. But I do want to check it out because it you know, piqued my curiosity, and I love a bit Metroidvania. And I'm really glad I did, as much as I am reluctant often to get into early access games. I'm okay. My caveat is I'm okay with multiplayer stuff, generally speaking. So like having played like Grounded and Grounded 2, because I like being there for the process. It feels like that makes sense to help build a game. But for a single player experience, I feel hesitant to do that because I feel like I'm just seeing something before it's ready, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense. I know it's a very weird, just thing to make a point of. But anyway, point being, I checked it out. Really, really loved it. I still want to recommend it to people, especially for Metroidvania fans. Go check it out. It's got a lot of really cool, what I feel like are kind of not new necessarily systems, but new for Metroidvania. They described it as having sort of JRPG sort of DNA, where you meet character like NPC characters and make fated bonds with them, and those bonds are then allow you to basically have them join you on your journey out, and then use them as like abilities and attacks. You like summon them briefly, almost like they were like an assistant in a fighting game sort of sense, which is really cool. And you can have 3 of them equipped. They go back to your hub, which is this cool like temple castle in the middle of the map environment. And they then fulfill like some roles there as well. You get like meet a chef who will cook food, and you bring them back like the health plants you find, and that will then increase your health, your maximum health. There's a chap there who's a head of the Hunters Guild. Your character, a young boy called Hira, who's got like a mysterious origin and seems to be fated to confront the gods. Is a young has just become a hunter, like a sort of journeyman, a novice or something like that. And they like unlock new attacks and stuff like that for you to use into like broaden your combat repertoire. You've got your classic traversal things that you learn, referred to as ascensions, which you unlock using points you gain from the bonds you make with NPCs. And that's kind of what I loved so much about it, is even though there are all these like different systems that sound like there could be a lot to take in and be quite overwhelming, they're all really beautifully kind of tied back into just making Hira, your character, better and have more to use and explore more of the map and expand the game in a really natural sort of way. So even if there are lots of things going on, you kind of know where it's all going to settle, which is that you'll have more points to spend in this. You'll be able to power up this thing you have. All you need to do is go back to your hub and do what's necessary. And one of the things I really liked about it is there's brilliant tracking for it, which is great for Metroidvania, of course. But also you are kind of given, what was the name for them? I don't have it in front of me right now. They basically have like mini missions for you to do as you go out. So it's like killing certain mobs in a certain area. You kill 8 of this thing, and you can then earn another type of currency, which you then use to give yourself like new passives and stuff like that. So healing outside of combat will be one of them, for example. So again, there's like always something to be doing. There's always worth checking your menus because there's likely to be something that you've recently completed that you can just then unlock, like earn yourself some extra currency to then power up something else. And so you're not waiting for the usual kind of like one major thing to happen where like you'll go beat a boss in an area, you'll unlock the particular tool from that region that unlocks new parts of the map. It's like you're not just waiting for those single big milestones. There's lots of little things going on between all of those bigger milestones. So there's this constant sense of feeling rewarded, which is really, really cool. I really, really liked that, and felt constantly kind of incentivized to go out and search and explore and fight every monster I found and do everything I could in this early access version of it. I haven't finished it all, and I intend to play more of it because I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, I definitely think other people should as well, as much as it is in early access. Fallen Tier, The Ascension is definitely worth your time. So
I had a quick look at that one on Steam, Harry, while you were talking. It's not too one I'm too familiar with, but one thing that jumped out is on the map of the game. It actually looks, you can actually see the world on the map, and a Metroidvania map is normally blank, and you kind of just trying to retrace your steps. But this, you can actually visually see where it is that you want to go back to, and that should be kind of the standard for Metroidvania. But that's a nice touch, and I hope more games adopt that, because it really does help with, you're 25 hours into a Metroidvania, you're thinking about somewhere that you want to go back to and use an ability, but looking at a pretty blank map, you're like, where was it? So yeah,
which block?
That's really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing again is like they're a studio who have clearly paid attention to like what people are doing, because they've included the screenshot system that I think people know most from Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. So pinning things on your map and with the screenshot, so you can see the location and immediately go like, yep, that's the spot I wanted to use that move that I was thinking about using. So they've taken the time to build on this using not well worn territory, but then also injecting new ideas as well. So it's got I think a lot going for it, and I think people will be really impressed with this, because as far as I can tell, it is also the studio's the first game. Whilst we go into the news, I will quickly look them up because we've mentioned everybody else. I'd feel bad if we didn't highlight them. But yeah, it was a nice surprise. And as I said, I don't often play early access, so to find a game that makes me want to play more early access games kind of was nice. Winter Crew Studios is the name of the studio, just in case people are interested. Yeah.
So Winter
very,
Crew
very
Studio
cool.
is putting in a lot of mechanics into things, but in a way that fits well and works well. Maybe unlike Crimson Desert, that has too many mechanics and is throwing people off.
Wow.
He's so good at this. It's because we give
Which
her
one of
so much less to work with on Girl Pods. It's just like,
Who is
what
the
can
host?
I do?
It's incredible. It's so fluid. So organic.
Sorry, the moment was there. I had to take it. You
No,
set
your
it up
instincts
so
were
well.
sharp. I love it. I didn't know what to do. I was going to flounder. I was going to go like, right, let's move on to news. No, but let's do that. Let's move straight into Crimson Desert, which again, in a funny way, as opposed to everything else we just mentioned, is a game that none of us here have played. So we all have that in common, at least. We did not get a code, unfortunately, over here at the GSC, not through lack of trying. But yeah, we obviously will not have a review up for it as of yet when this video goes up. I'm not entirely sure when we will, but
It's
when
a
we do, we'll let you
110-hour
know.
game, so I reckon he will have his review done in about 3 days. Because
Yeah.
because that man can bend space and time. When it is a game that he wants to play.
It's very true. It's very true. Well, look, we'll go around the room, shall we, a little bit, and we can talk a bit about it from our own points of view. I think plenty of us have seen the review scores. They are fluctuating. They're a bit all over the place. It's currently, I think, sitting at a 78, 79 was the last thing I saw when I looked at it. And maybe it's come back up again. Again, it really is just, it's going all really backwards and forwards. So it could be changing by the minute. But Mark, were you somebody who was really, were you interested in Crimson Desert from your off? Have you been caught up in the bubble? And I'll ask everybody this as we go around, but were you somebody who was caught up in all of that? What do I say? What have I
I'm
done?
laughing because I know I feel like I know what Mark's going to
Oh,
say.
right. I see.
We've had the same opinion on this on the Discord for a while.
I know, but I gotta do the thing.
No, I know. It's all right.
What have your thoughts been on this? And like, yeah, are you surprised by what's happened? I guess with the scores and things like that.
I think the divisive score is probably unsurprising now what has come out about the game. I'm just relieved that it's not a complete scam. because it looked too good to be true, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gave itself such a high reputation to live up to. And it's already done so because you can see that people are already kicking off about it only having a Metacritic score of below 80. And it's that one of those kind of games that people get aggy where it's not a 90, even though they've not
Mm-hmm.
even played the game themselves yet. So IGN have put up a provisional score of a 6, and the internet have gone absolutely berserk about it. But the review scores definitely seem to be a bit divisive. But from what I've kind of read about the game, I think the criticisms probably do make it about a 80-ish Metacritic game, because a lot of it is around about having a kind of hollow story. It's kind of light on the narrative side, and I think when you've got a game which is 100+ hours, like, I think you need something that's going to get its teeth into you, and a story and a narrative to keep you captured. And I say that as somebody who adores Breath of the Wild, and the story in that's a bit cack. There's not really much of a story until right at the end of the game in that, but it is kind of a make your own adventure. So I guess in a way it's okay to have a light story, but I also think that it should have been a big thing. But what are a lot of the other criticisms have been that they've done a little bit too much, and maybe should have spent a bit more time reconciling their efforts on some of the more exciting things, and just focused on those a little bit more, and dropped a few things that maybe could have been added later or come in as a DLC. But it sounds like, this always was an insanely optimistic game. And to be fair, to put out what they have put out is quite remarkable. And it seems to be relatively stable. Obviously, a lot of the questions were up until even as early as the start of the week, how is this going to perform on base Xbox Series and PS5 consoles? And it sounds like it holds up. But obviously, as the wider gaming community starts to get their hands on it, I think the real proof will start to appear, and the real kind of public perception of the game will also from here. But I've seen so many people get a copy of that today on Twitter, so it's clearly been huge. It's currently top of the Steam charts. It's probably going to be top on PlayStation and Xbox as well. But yeah, I think the criticisms that the game's received at launch are probably some of the things I would have expected to see. But as a game, I think if it's what you were looking for, and I think it's going to be a really good time. But there is no way I've got 110 hours for a game, so I don't know if I'll ever get to it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a lot to take on if you're thinking of picking it up, even as just a single player game with that much content. Like I'm someone who poured a lot of time into like a Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei as well, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but those are frankly now once every couple of years. I feel I could do that with a game. Even with Expedition 33, I took my time with it, but I also reviewed it for the site, so I still got it done, I think, within 2 weeks of launch.
Mm.
So far shorter than I would have taken if I'd just had my time with it. But with Crimson Desert, obviously, there's a lot of people reviewing it from different outlets, and they'll all have disparaging amounts of time with the game, depending on their own schedules and things like that. And again, as is sometimes the case with these sorts of games, when it gets this divisive, people will find the score that appeals to them. It's the score that says what they need to hear, more often than not. And it kind of, in a different way, actually, like you said, the game is going to do really well, I think, regardless of the scores. And in that respect, the scores kind of don't matter for the game. It's going to be a success because people are interested in it. They want to see what the fuss is about, even if the fuss is, it's an ocean wide and a puddle, deep sort of thing. And that seems to be the general consensus from a lot of the outlets is like, yeah, there's a lot here. It's just most of it's like, why did you do this instead of, as you say, Mark, spending more time on this other element? And whether or not it's a case of something like feature creep, or they always intended to do all of these things and it was one of those just sort of like big ideas from the off. I don't know if that's something that's out there in the wild or if we'll learn about that, but it'll be interesting to know how Crimson Desert came about. Because of course it is the single player alternative to Black Desert, which was an MMO that this studio made. And, you know, it is very much from, I think, that MMO DNA of there's a lot to do, but if you spend too long looking at it, you realize it's really shallow. You know, anybody who's playing an MMO, I think, will speak to that. You know, yes, there are great quest lines and things like that, but, you know, bring me 10 ball skins. All right. That's what you're doing a lot of the time in most of these. So anyway, Fee, I know you probably felt similarly as Mark did to Crimson Desert, and but you know, is it the sort of game that you would have been interested in playing, you know, even with the scale and things like that taken into consideration, if given the time, all that sort of thing? Is it the sort of game that you would give the time to?
So I think, yeah, well, before it came out, I was mostly in the same boat as Mark, and did genuinely think that this thing was going to be like potentially another Cyberpunk 2077, if not a day before, just didn't exist.
Wow, yeah.
But I think for me, the lack of like a compelling story doesn't bother me too much, because I have an obscene amount of hours in Skyrim, and you can't really say that Skyrim has a compelling story. I think I had like 300 hours in Skyrim before I even completed the main story once. I just like mucking about, and I have seen quite a lot of people online when saying like, okay, the scores are unfair because of the lack of compelling story, is like, oh, but what about Skyrim, or as Mark said, like Breath of the Wild or Elden Ring? But I do think it's worth noting that they have very simple mechanics, all three of them. I don't like, obviously Elden Ring is not a very simple game. Skyrim is, and I would argue that Breath of the Wild is not a very difficult game. Obviously Elden Ring is a hard game, but it is not a mechanically complex game. You get weapon, level up weapon, hit things in the face, or backstab them, etc. So I think, yeah, my concern, I think, would be the sort of feature creep element of it. It's just like, just throw everything at it. I've seen a big sort of conversation around like, oh, well, people might not like it because it's not handholdy enough. And I'm like, I think we have to really move away from this narrative that people don't like games if they don't bombard them with tutorials. It's a really outdated talking point, because we've seen over the last couple of years that actually the games that do really, really well and like our winning game of the years are stuff like Souls-likes. You've got like Liza P, one of the most successful Souls-likes ever. It's not mashing you over the head with tutorials constantly. Again, Elden Ring's got like a 96 or something like that on Metacritic. Even Night Rain did really well, even though people were expecting it to flop because it's such a departure from the formula. And I can tell you, like Mark and I have played Night Rain. It should explain some of the mechanics more. Like some of the stuff,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But this
That's
idea
FromSoft,
that,
folks. That's what they've done with every one of their games. They're
yeah,
just like,
yeah. We had
oh,
to
like,
basically be bullied into putting tutorials in Elden Ring because people are like, "I'm stuck in a cave. I don't know where I'm going." Like, but like I don't think this idea that, you know, um, that people, especially gaming journalists and to some points like content creators, um, don't like difficult games, just doesn't seem to wash with how actually games get rated. uh, I think there's a lot of games that are picked up by gaming spheres specifically or particularly on Twitter, that when they don't get rated as highly as people think they should, there's this massive backlash against gaming journalism. And like, I'm not saying gaming journalism is great, like, or by any means. A lot of outlets don't do themselves any favors in any way around these sorts of things. But yeah, it's not like, oh, it's being scored harshly because it's too hard. And I'm like, I just don't believe that, like, at all. But I do think if you've got a game with that amount of stuff in it, because you can go through all of the features that it's got, you kind of can't get away with not tutorializing to an extent. So if it's like, oh, there's no hand holding whatsoever, and I'm like, what do you mean? It's got 45 systems. Just tell me how it fucking works. Like, you can't put that forward as being like, this is great. This game doesn't explain how to do anything, when there's like and mounts and 17 different types of combos, and you can stack different things on top of each other. And I'm like, okay, Skyrim doesn't really tell you how to do anything, but you can sneak archer or swing sword or shoot fire out hand. That's it. That's basically it. There's not really much else to do. It's not a mechanically complex game. So I think it's a shame that the share price has dropped because it didn't get the review score that it needed. I think that's a horrible practice and should be absolutely there's nothing we can do about this. But it's like, oh, infinite money, big number must go up. Obviously, people are buying the game. It should be more based on sales and consumer reception rather than critical reception about whether or not these guys have jobs and bonuses. They've obviously made a fantastic product. But I think it's really highlighted like a big weird thing in gaming discourse around people getting super hyped about something, and then if it doesn't exactly, if people don't exactly agree with them, it's because they're too stupid or you're shit at games and actually you don't know what you're talking about and people can't be trusted and this is all. And it's like, I don't know, maybe just have a little pop-up box and tell me how to use the fishing rod if you're going to put fishing in your game, bro. I don't know. Like,
that's pretty fair.
if you're going to have a very feature-rich game, I think that you should probably explain how some of the features work. And admittedly, as we've said, I've not played it. Maybe they do. But I don't think no hand-holding is necessarily the selling point that people say it is. This is a buzz phrase that people use on the internet to be like, I'm better at games than you, and if you don't like it, it's just because you don't understand game. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, fine.
In this respect, I feel like Crimson Desert feels like the best example of a case where a game is being fought over by an audience for the sake of wanting the fight more than anything else. I don't think these people felt strongly enough about the game Crimson Desert at the end of the day. I think it's purely because that media is not giving it 9s and 10s that they're like, oh, we get to be angry at the journalists again because they're giving it bad scores. It's like, you wouldn't have batted an eyelid regardless. Like, this isn't going to change your opinion on the game anyway, because this isn't something you had a strong enough opinion about. You just were happy that now you have something to get upset about. That's it. That's how this feels at the end of the day. Because I can't imagine that game people were excited for Crimson Desert in a sort of like, I genuinely have like kind of some sort of like, not stakes, but there's like, everybody wants a game to hopefully succeed. That's the intention. We love games to succeed so we can play them and they last, we get more of them. And thankfully this will probably happen with Crimson Desert, regardless of what has happened with its review scores and its share price and its investors and stuff like that. And as you said, V, that speaks to a much bigger problem with the games industry right now, where it's being used as a system in order to just basically make money, and it's no longer about actually making video games. So
I think everyone's always banging on, and I've seen it over the last few months, especially around like the High Guard situation, stuff like that. But everyone seems to be banging on about toxic positivity until a game that they want to do well, or a game that they like, gets criticism, and then all of a sudden, criticism is bad actually, and why are you not being positive about the thing that I like? And I'm like, okay.
I'm open to the conversation that there has been a general trend of like the positive creep up the scale, the point scale across media. I think there's definitely a conversation to be had there, but that's separate. There can be tangentially related, but it's not this conversation that we're having. This is, as you say, like not what that is. Especially with the fact the scores are all over the place for it. They really are. You've got scores as low as like 4s from some outlets, and some as high as 9s. So
I can't imagine it deserves a 4. That means it's
that's it.
broken, and I think that's
it. There are people who are being too harsh, and then there are people who are being far too rewarding of it as well, I think. And that's what ends up happening, is it does find that ground where hopefully it is actually being represented by, it's good, it's a solid game, it's close to an 80. Like, you'd have a great time with this. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. So, check it out. Why not have fun with it and not worry what other people think? Speaking of which, Candy, what do you think of this?
um, I mean, I think it's a lot from the list of things that are on there, but I also wonder if that's maybe a specific audience that they were also trying to get to, right? You mentioned before, that their previous game was an MMO, right? As you age, unfortunately, most people don't have the time and capacity to play an MMO and to continue on with an MMO, right? So I also wonder, was that some of the thinking in, we're going to give you everything that you would get in MMO, except that it is a single player game. You can play it on your own time. You don't have to try to figure out timing with friends, and you don't have to try to set up your time for rating and whatever it is that's in there. And I also wonder if that's leading to some of the divisiveness in scores, because if you are a company that has excelled at making this MMO, I know I looked it up very quickly and it's like over 20 million players. That's a huge number. That's fantastic. If you're banking on your 20 million or even half of that, 10 million, picking up this game to play it because maybe they've aged up and don't have that time, right? That might be the sort of consumer that you're thinking about, that you're looking at. And they may think this is a banger game because it has everything they want at their pace, at their time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the target audience for this, right? I'm not the target audience for this. They had a huge activation last year at PAX East, and I just remember seeing people with the blue lines across their face, and I just kept thinking, what the fuck is this? That people, I was like, is there a cult here? Like, what is happening? And then it was like, oh, the game throws you into this boss fight with basically nothing, and it's just like, have fun. And I was like, okay, so it's definitely not a game for me, but I see where there's an appeal for it. I see where there's an audience for it with all the things that it has. I see who you might be trying to market towards. And I think, unfortunately, those might be the people that are very loud on Twitter being like, it deserves better than a 4. Yes, but I think, again, reviews are, subjective, right? If I'm not an MMO person, which I know I'm not, I'd probably be like, yeah, this is too much for a single player game. And I love me a long game. You give me a JRPG, I will find the 120 hours to play it. I'm not going to find the 110 hours to play this though, right? So I think it's the audience, the niche. Like, what are you looking for? I think the game is going to do well. I think the fact that there aren't a huge amount of complaints about how it's performing on console is just going to help it, right? So I don't think this is the last of maybe a desert series, and maybe they'll get DLC and they'll add more things, and I do hope that it does well, because again, I think there's a really good market for it. But I was never going to play it, and I've been really just on the outskirts looking at it. But if people are enjoying it and that's your bag, have fun, right? And if you don't like it, then just walk away. Let the people enjoy it. There's so many games out there to get upset about. Like, that's not one.
Indeed. Yeah. It's so true.
It just seems like one of those games that's just perfect to wait a year for. It's going to be like, there's going to be lots of common complaints, and it's a big game that they're going to need another year to get up to the standard that kind of post-launch people expect. So it kind of feels like, there's a lot of pre-launch hype, and you know what, they've done a really good job of marketing this game, to be fair to them. But I feel like, give it a year, you'd be playing a much better, much more refined, much more streamlined, enhanced game. So if you're on the fence, why rush out? You can pick it up on digital storefronts at any time, whenever you want. So, and I think you'll probably get it cheaper in a year's time, and you're a lot better product really as well. So
and even that is very like MMO, like in general, like people who played like your WoWs, and I mean the biggest one, Final Fantasy 14, right? If you played the original Final Fantasy Online, it was garbage, and that's why it's now a Realm Reborn, right? Like, so even that in a year you'll get a better product is very like MMO thinking, and very MMO like focused, and that's what they do well. So enjoy it now if you want to enjoy it now, but maybe in a year from now, go back and revisit it. Or if you were on the fence, in a year from now, jump in. But I think it's going to do fantastic, and I think people are going to love it, and kudos to them.
I'm not sure if we know full well if there is already like a roadmap for future content or anything, but it will be interesting to see how this studio, as we say, with the MMO DNA, approaches this game. If they saw this as it's a single player game, so it's a one and done. We drop it, it's done, we leave it alone, we move on to the next one. Or are they going to take across what they've done with MMO stuff in the past and be like, well, we continue to support it like you would with any game, but also we can then change systems. We know how to do that. We've done it before, so on and so forth. Yeah. And hopefully, yeah, I wish the best for Polybus. Their stuff seems to be great, and they certainly don't deserve to have their shares, smashed, due to some people's scores being different from others and things like that. It just seems seems very ludicrous. In other things that have been pretty ludicrous to see, why don't we talk about DLSS 5?
How they
Ooh,
made my
boy.
boy Leon ugly. I don't care what they think.
I just like, how is that possible? How is that possible? How are you taking Leon Kennedy, the finest man, and making him look bad, and then being like, "This is the future.
Yeah.
This is the future.
There,
AI
there is
slop."
there is a lot to dig in with this one. Obviously, for starters, there is just everyone's favorite police officer Leon Kennedy, looking pretty haggard, unfortunately, not looking his best. But neither is anybody else, frankly, in a lot of these shots, it seems. Or neither are they looking same from shot to shot, which is also an interesting one. But yeah, it's obviously come to light through the sort of not deep dive kind of thing, I guess, the sort of kind of look over from Digital Foundry. Now, of course, most of us know Digital Foundry from covering games from a technical standpoint and tech in general, and they're great at what they do, and they still are. I think what happened in this situation, especially around Digital Foundry, is that their tone when it came to delivering the information seemed to be one of, hey, this is it, this is the next big step, this is the thing we've been waiting for, this is the next ray tracing, this is the next going from some 1080p to 4K, or whatever big leap you can think of, going from cartridges to disc, whichever one you fancy. And unfortunately, of course, pretty much unanimously, the gaming community, at least, and quite a lot, I imagine, of the gaming industry as well, have looked at this and gone,
Never mind
no.
just that. The other half of Digital Foundry were like, "What is this trash that you've
Well,
put
that too,
out
yes.
in our
It doesn't
name?"
help.
Like-
It doesn't help when your own team are like infighting about this, is what it seems. So yeah, but of course they've now put out like stuff about kind of trying to kind of tidy things up a bit for themselves, which I appreciate. And again, you guys are not there as sort of snake oil salesmen at the end of the day. The likelihood is that they saw it in a very particular manner, and thus, from what they gathered, they were like, "Oh, this seems really exciting. This is going to, be a really beneficial tool to artists who no doubt will think this is really cool."
I just
yeah,
I
I
can't see it
disagree.
being really cool because everybody then looks the same, right? And the
Yeah.
way they all look so AI-ified, if that's a phrase that we can use now in
Slopification.
2026.
It's the opposite of yassification.
I know,
Slopification.
I hate that word yassification, but I think my problem is that, and I've talked about this in other capacities, but you almost take away the artistic vision of the people that were working on this, right? Because if the technology is there to upscale it, then the technology is there to make them look like that in the first place. Maybe that's not the look they were going for. Maybe they really wanted a specific look because maybe they wanted their game to stand out and they wanted this particular art style to come through, and you were forcing people to lose an artistic vision for what, so they all look so homogenized and they all look somewhat shiny and they all look like I put it through generative AI to give me some sort of image. Like, I don't want all of my things to look like that, right? And I know I brought up, like, Leon Kennedy as the example, but I'm like, if you put that version of him next to another cop from another game, I might not be able to tell the difference because they all look the same, right? I'm not trying to play Love in Deep Space. I'm trying to play Resident Evil Requiem, where they look different, where they have a soul, where they have something, right? And
Yeah.
for one tool, I'm going to call it, right, to take that all away from so many, if not every games, just feels detrimental to like game development as a whole.
Yeah. And I also think that you're being a little bit too charitable to Digital Foundry, to be perfectly honest. Because I read their article, and they specifically go out of their way to be like, it's not generative AI, it's just lighting, as if you cannot see geometry changes on the characters where it's been
Yeah.
painted over with GenAI. And then immediately afterwards, the CEO of Nvidia, who should just go and live in a fucking cave, what a troll of a man, comes out and is like, oh,
Whoa,
everyone
wow.
who doesn't like this is wrong, by the way. It's it's not generative AI, it's M&S generative AI. Like his whole sentence just that's why we call it neural AI or whatever nonsense he's talking about. Yeah, what is it? This is very different from generative AI. It's content control generative AI. What does that mean? Buzzwords, nonsense, just absolute
Some
shite from a man
it's
who, like, rightfully the founder of Linux told to fuck off many years ago. Like,
yes. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't believe Marks and Spencers is a chain that's outside of the UK, but
I
Marks and
know.
Spencers used to have a fantastic ad campaign for its food department here in the UK, which was this isn't just food, this is M&S food.
Yes.
And this feels very much a case of him being like, this isn't Gen AI, this is content control generative AI.
This is content control generative AI, and then for Digital Foundry to come out and be like, "Oh, we're really sorry. We should have waited to see if everyone hates this before we said we liked it." Just seemed like such a weird cop out. I was like, the the video looks bad. Like, I can understand the idea of when you're really into tech, getting excited about new tech, but presumably as the people that go through and look at stuff for frame differences, you are supposed to have eyes, and you're looking at this and saying that this like like we should this is why you should hire fans version of Grace Ashford from Resident Evil 9 looks better. I'm just not buying it. Like, I'm like was the CEO of Nvidia in the room when you were writing that article with a gun? Like, what do you mean? It's terrible. Like,
Well, I want to hear what Mark has to say about this as well, because Mark has yet to share his thoughts. But yeah, what do you make of all this, man? Because you haven't spoken up about it, I think, even in the Discord, really. So yeah, how do you feel about this whole DLSS 5 thing?
Partially not really get involved with some kind of naivety on the subject. So, and I've
So
not
yeah,
seen the Digital Foundry bits that you guys have been talking about. And I'm not a gaming tech guy by any means, but I think 90% of me really doesn't like this. And looking at the images on Nvidia's site of the Liverpool player Virgil van Dijk, and he looks like a completely different man
that's the
with
one that really did
DLSS
it for
5
me.
on.
And I'm not even someone who knows football, but just when they showed that and then showed the actual football, I was like, that's drastic. Like that's not cool. Um,
He
yeah,
looks
sorry.
a bit more like another player called Cody Gakpo, who also plays for Liverpool. But it's just bizarre how much they've changed. I don't really know. I mean, obviously this is going to be a tool for developers, and at the moment this is like a showcase of what it can do. I think in the right hands, AI's obviously got a place in gaming, and I think some of the background environments actually do look better. For example, the Hogwarts Legacy, the one of the I can't remember the name of the Harry Potter town. What's it called?
Hogsmeade?
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
Hogsmeade. I actually think that looks better with the DLSS on. Obviously, the focus has been a lot on the characters, and the majority of those look considerably worse.
Yeah.
But I think some of the non-character based like assets of how they change, I don't think look too bad at all, and I don't think they look like too AI. But I think you're right. I think everything has got that kind of shiny look that kind of games had like a generation or two ago. Everything would look really shiny for a while, and that kind of like
Mm.
dialed back as graphic fidelity improved. But definitely, this is all going down that shiny kind of look again. But yeah, I mean, I think as a tool for developers, if they work out how it can have a place without kind of replacing artistic vision, I think it could be. It's obviously a tool that they are going to use, whether we like it or not. I think.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's that kind of, where do they sit on replacing but a staff with this, for example. But I guess the other thing with AI is that we all typically don't like it, or at least 90% of us don't like it. But if it is going to assist with game development time, and we are going to not wait for 7 or 8 years for every single individual game, then it does have a place. As development time is spiraling out of control. If we don't have to wait, we're going 3 years instead of 6 or 7, and people are not going to lose jobs because the development times aren't too long, then it might not be too bad. That said, if people are getting laid off for AI technology, that's obviously shocking. But yeah, I maybe don't hate it as much as you guys seem to. But yeah, I do think the character models look like complete ass. But I think some of the background textures look quite sharp.
Yeah, I think you've taken a very measured approach to it, and I think you're correct. There are certain shots you can look at, and especially with some of the detailing maybe in the background, or just how certain reflections may have been handled, like puddles on the sidewalk behind Grace in the Resi ones, for example. They may look more realistic, may look more like, oh wow, that is actually kind of how they should look. But you're right, because of the focus being on all of these pretty aggressive, transformations of all these characters. It does frame it in a pretty bad way for people to try and try and say like, well, no, but we could use it for other things. Like they didn't spend any time really trying to do that to their own detriment. And what's funny, again, talking about who will be using this sort of stuff, to find out that a bunch of the developers of the games they used to show it off didn't know like that this sort of stuff was kind of happening with their games. So you have like Todd Howard just being like, I'm sorry, what? DLS what? And that's kind of a bit worrying in the first place. It's not going to reflect great on them. They'll probably be wishing that their game hadn't been used for this piece of marketing. But there we are. Well,
the Digital Foundry article specifically spoke about how it should be used, or is supposed to be used, for improved lighting and textures, and that's why it wasn't AI for the backgrounds and stuff. And I think it was very jarring to see every single example just be something straight out of like an AI image generator. So it would be interesting, to Mark's point, to actually see what it can do as a tool to improve like ray tracing and help with that, whilst being significantly less like hardware dependent. Although I do think, well, in the demos that they showed of it, you needed two 5090s to run it. So yeah, they might put it in games, but you're probably going to have to toggle it off for everything, because I don't know one person that in my life that can afford one 5090, never mind fucking two.
yeah. Seems like a while before most of us will get the chance to play a game, with all those bells and whistles. But people don't have to wait long to play Starfield, and that now includes PlayStation fans.
You can play it right now.
Very good.
You can play it right now, because of course, Starfield has now launched on PlayStation 5, and alongside that, it has also gotten a whole bunch of updates. We actually do have an article up on the site about this. Our very own Mark, in fact, wrote it up, which is very nice of him. But yeah, you've got a whole bunch of pricing here. So if you want to either pick up the standard or premium edition of the game now on PlayStation, you've got that. You've also got Starfield game updates and DLC. So there will be a bunch of updates, including, well, it's basically a 2.0, as you call it, Mark, and in the article. You'll be seeing, is it the free lanes? Is that how it is? Yeah. Update. You'll get access to the Terran Armada story DLC, as well as the Trackers Alliance, and that's part of one of the creation bundles. So that's content that's been made by the community and has been sort of adopted into the game. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's usually what Bethesda Creation Kit is.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, now of course Starfield was sort of, I feel like it was kind of being heralded as like what was going to be maybe another tentpole for Xbox to a certain extent. Certainly was, obviously, for Bethesda. Whether or not Starfield will go on to have a sequel and things like that, I feel like still is kind of maybe a little bit up in the air. But it's very cool to see it go onto other platforms. And judging by what people have been saying in the sort of previews of like the new content coming out, which was also sort of spread about online just as this all happened, it does sound really cool. It does sound like there's plenty of good reason to get back into the game if you are someone who enjoyed Starfield in the first place. It also sounds like it's just a lot more cool stuff to enjoy as someone who's new to it. So you wouldn't even know what was new in the first place. So in that respect, it does sound pretty cool. I enjoyed my time with Starfield. I played it through to see the end twice. I think it was I did it in total. And I had a friend who had done it about 7 or 8 times and absolutely loved it. So it's one of those games you can kind of get how much you want out of it as well, which is kind of interesting. Did everyone here play Starfield? No.
Yep.
Yeah, I finished Starfield. It was a good time. I feel like the side quests were much better than the main storyline, from what I recall. Some of the faction quests, some of those were really good, and some of that's kind of faded into a bit of a distant memory now because I played it at launch, two and a half years ago. But Starfield, yeah, it's well worth the time, and glad that more people are getting to play it on PlayStation. It sounds like they've really listened to what a lot of the community issues were, particularly around kind of space exploration and taking off from a planet and being able to fly away on your own, because it was all sold initially as the big kind of space galactic adventure, whereas really it was kind of doing things with lots of loading screens, kind of making it look like a space exploration in the middle. But it sounds like they fixed some of that. I don't know if I've really got the appetite to pick it back up, and I didn't play the Shattered Space DLC, which apparently was bang average, is kind of the musings that I heard. But yeah, you know what? Well worth people time. It's probably the lower end of Bethesda quality games, but yeah, more people get to give it a go, and worth people's time.
Yeah, definitely. Candy, any interest with the new update and everything like that? Any
No,
call to action?
I'm not really like a sci-fi. It's funny. I like my fantasy as like me being the active participant, which I think is why I really go to like the Elder Scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as like I've been enjoying like Fallout and I like things like Star Wars as a passive participant, I'm not huge on like that being the setting of games that I play. So I'm like, that's great. I'm glad that this is out because now you're done with this game, right? So we can finally get back to Elder Scrolls 6, right? Like you're done with this, right? We can put this on the shelf and walk away because that's
Finish your little side project, okay, Todd? All right,
Todd, get your shit together.
your little space game, all right.
Yeah, like I'm done with this. Okay, I'm done. Let's
Get back to the serious stuff with dragons and wizards.
Exactly,
Damn it!
exactly. Let me get my Khajiit back, okay? Let's go. Yeah, that's all.
No,
I
absolutely. Yeah, I imagine there's definitely a bunch of people who are still just like you, who are just like, cool, yeah, we done now. Can we move on? Yeah, absolutely. What about you, V? Do you think you'll go back?
Yeah, I might do actually. I don't think I finished the story in Starfield actually. Again, like most Bethesda games, I get very distracted very easily, and then I'm just like off doing other things.
Yeah.
Like
To Mark's
being
point,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
To Mark's point, the side content's great in
yeah,
Starfield. That's the thing. So many of and most people will point out things like, I think it's the Mantis mission is one of the first ones that most people will point to, which is
yeah.
fantastic. But yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. I think Starfield actually was one of maybe a little bit like Crimson Desert, and was maybe just a victim of some of the hype that was around it before it came out. I see if someone see people really need to stop with this term like generational game. You all have to stop. This is like just it's ridiculous, to be perfectly honest. We all know the only generational game that's coming out this generation is Grand Theft Auto 6, whether or not you like it or not. Like, I'm not a big Grand Theft Auto fan, but this is the level of hype that is included in a generational game. You're talking only just got beaten in trailer views by the new Spider-Man movie level of hype. before you should be calling things generational. Stop just anything that you kind of fancy or looks kind of good is the next generational game, and then everyone gets too excited about it, and then it comes out and it's not exactly what people expected, and then everyone gets really mad about it. Um, but I enjoyed Starfield, but I enjoyed it the way that I enjoy. Although to be fair, I'm not a huge fan of Fallout 4. I thought I preferred Fallout 3, and obviously New Vegas is Oblivion. But yeah, I enjoyed it the way I enjoy most Bethesda games, which is not engaging with it necessarily in the way that the developers intended. Just like, oh, I'm going to make new storage on my ship, and then I'm going to fill that storage with potted plants. So there's succulents everywhere, and then the game takes an age to load, and my Xbox sounds like it's actually going to explode. Like, and then I'm just going to bugger off to another planet to be like, oh, what's over here? Was it? Oh, what's that? So yeah, and maybe with all the new additions and stuff, especially with the removal of some of the loading screens, as Mark mentioned, could be a little bit egregious. Just because there's so much sort of planet hopping and things. I'll go back and actually find out why you're a Jedi or whatever. I don't know, like why there's time travel-y things. So yeah, I'll go back and give it a go. How long has it been since it came out? 2.5 years. That's probably not enough time for me to finish the main quest in a Bethesda game. Maybe I'll give it a couple of years. I'll go and
Yeah.
mess around for a bit and then come back and another 2 years and finally finish the main story.
You don't want to rush it, you know.
Well, I might wait till I get a new TV or something. That's what I did. The very first time I beat Skyrim was like 7 or 8 years after it launched, and it was because I had just bought myself like a proper good TV. It was the first good TV that I properly owned, like a 45-inch, like proper telly, and I was like, I'm gonna play Skyrim. I'm gonna finish the main quest on my big TV, like to celebrate. So
I love that.
we'll
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a nice way to do it. But yeah, look forward to hearing your thoughts on it if you do ever get around to finishing Starfield. Um, But it's not just Starfield that got an upgrade. In fact, the Nintendo Switch 2 has also received one in handheld mode with the new boost mode, which we're going to turn to Mark to give us a little sort of early review on, seeing as how he has just bought himself a Switch 2 and has been testing that out. And we'll use that as a nice way to lead into then what we are looking forward to, I think. So yeah, Mark, tell us a bit about the Nintendo Switch 2 handheld boost mode, please.
Yeah, cheers, Harry. So the handheld boost mode was something that actually landed on the day that my Switch 2 arrived, which was really nice. So basically what handheld boost mode does is play your Switch 1 games at docked quality in handheld on a Switch 2. So you kind of gain that resolution, you gain those performance boosted that you wouldn't have a few days before. But yeah, so you can toggle it on and off as you please. But I had a quick go with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which I haven't played before, but thought, let's chuck this in while Mario Kart takes 6 hours to download on my bad internet. So I gave that a quick go, and you know what? The you can really notice the resolution bump when you turn on the handheld boost mode. So I've also been watching quite a lot of videos on YouTube of the comparison side by side, but it actually makes obviously just got a Switch 2, and I've had a Switch for many years, but it's kind of sat in a drawer for the last 6 months. But it actually makes me want to go and pick up some of the games that I didn't play on Switch to play on my Switch 2, because it's going to make them look a lot more impressive. I'd say with my Switch 1, I probably played that barely even 10% docked. It's always something that I'm going to play handheld. So when they're all going to have that shiny resolution bump to play on the in bed or on the sofa, then it's really, really appealing. So I think some of those more demanding games, like I actually played The Witcher on Switch, which is like a bit of a heretic thing to do, but
Interesting.
the way that I played it. But I never got around to the Blood and Wine and the other DLC that I can't remember the name of. So maybe it's actually acceptable to play The Witcher on Switch 2 now, perhaps. So might go back and dig some of the old games out and see how they perform. But Yeah, I just think it's a really good addition. It's maybe took Nintendo a bit too long to implement it, to be truthful. And I think a
Mm.
lot of people have been expecting that they would do it at some point. There are some games that are hard locked out of it, which have specific inputs tied to how the game would be played in docked mode. And the article that I put on the site quoted Eurogamer on some of those. There was Pikmin and Mario 3D All Stars, perhaps. There was a few, but they're hard locked out of it. Um, and it does kind of seem to take up quite a lot of battery power quite quickly. The way that it's enhancing those games for you, but I just think that the way that the industry perceives kind of forward and backward compatibility now is really great.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been a luxury afforded to PC gamers for such a long time, but when Xbox embraced it during the Xbox One era, it kind of really set the precedent for games to be backwards compatible, and getting that resolution bump is just great. And yeah, the industry is really on board with taking a library forward and taking it forward in the best possible way. So yeah, I'm impressed by that, and it does make me want to pick up a few games that I never got around to on the original Switch. So yeah, really really good stuff, and maybe a little bit too late, but Nintendo finally rolled it out for free, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sort of thing you would have liked to have had when they launched the console, probably another selling point, to have on the box sort of thing, when it comes out. But they've done it, and that's great, and it's for free, which is even better. And as you said, it draws people to consider buying games they may have not played before because they've still got the hardware that can play the game, and it's going to look even better now in handheld mode. Well, why wouldn't I want to do that? Like, yeah, sounds like a no-brainer. And again, always good to have the backwards compatibility.
Hmm.
It's important for preservation. It's important because we've all spent so much damn money to get these games in the first place. And yeah, like you said, PC had it. We had it back in the day between PS1 and PS2 and things like that. And I think we all felt that that was going to be the norm for a while. And then obviously the PS3 came along and shat the bed. But there we are. We finally got it back together again with the Xbox One because they had such an awful launch. So hey, you never know when this thing's all come about. It's great. Demos are back in style. Who fucking knew? you know. But yeah, no, I'm pleased to hear that that's worth picking up and worth checking out. And yeah, I imagine that we'll still probably hear no doubt a couple of sales of certain Switch One titles, hitting milestones and things like that because of it. Um, and yeah, rightfully so. But yeah, why don't we roll into our final segment for the episode, which of course is what we are looking forward to. And Candy, why don't you start us off? What are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to PAX East, which is next week. So I will get to play lots of different things. Maybe I'll even get to hold a Nintendo Switch 2 in my hand, because Nintendo is returning to PAX East, and this is the first time in years that they're going
Oh,
to be there. So that is exciting, and they're bringing a few Pokemon games, um, a Mario game that has an upgrade, and a few other things. And my plan is to write the article before this goes on YouTube, so it'll be linked there. Um, so that is exciting. But as far as like some of the games that I'm really, really looking forward to, the Halloween game will have a hands-on demo, and I did book a time for that,
cool.
so I'm very excited for that one. And there's also a JRPG, Brigandine Abyss, that I honestly know very little about the series, but I've been trying to read up on it. And it sounds like it actually is really cool because it's tactical. I love a good JRPG. I love a tactics game. And I will get to ask a few questions to one of the game producers. So I'm excited to hear about like the journey of bringing that more to the West, and especially a game that hasn't had an entry in quite some time and what that's like. So PAX East is really the big thing that I'm looking forward to. Um, it'll be overwhelming, as game conventions always are, but I know it'll be fun.
That does sound awesome. Very jealous of you going to be there. But yeah, have a great time and look forward to hearing all about it. Uh, Lady V, what are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to a game that we saw last year at London Game Fest at New Game Plus, called Bloodletter. which is another deck building roguelike, because I love deck building roguelikes, they're so good.
You cannot be stopped.
But this one is very specific in its mechanics, in that we've covered it before in the demo disc, but and I think I did put it down as one of the games I was looking forward to for this year. But there's like a malevolent entity that is cursed a town, and you are there as a sort of healer who's trying to get rid of this evil entity and also make sure that the people of the town don't die. So it's a very specific format. It's not just a like Slay the Spire like or anything like that. So each day you have a list of, or you have a group of people that are coming to visit your clinic, and you have to use the cards from your deck to make sure that you can basically allow them to survive the night. So it's like getting some purity back to them and getting their health back and maybe curing them of illness. But you can also visit at least one person in the evening, and they can upgrade your deck or upgrade some of your cards and things, or help you manipulate who comes to your clinic the next day to try and maximize the benefits of things. But in order to do that, they have to have a favorable approval of you, and the entity can make them dislike you and things like that. So there's loads and loads of things to manage. It's much more like tactical as a wider thing. Obviously, when you're playing Slay the Spire, you have to think about how you're building your deck, but each combat encounter is its one specific combat encounter, and you are working your way through it. Whereas each entity that you're trying to get rid of in Bloodletter is like a sort of 45-minute to 1 hour run, where you are building your cards but also carefully managing the people that live in the town to make sure none of them die, because if too many of them die, then the entity takes over and you lose. And making sure, like, okay, maybe if I can get these people in fast enough by manipulating that element of it, then I can get rid of the entity before this person dies of illness, like the next day. I had such a fun time with it when we were at New Game Plus. I was like, I saw it. The art style is fantastic. It's like very medieval tapestry, and I love all the games that are out at the moment that look like that. I'm like, yes, absolutely my jam. I saw it. I was like, I was like, I have to play this. I have to play this when I'm here. Played it. Got talking to some of the guys over at Aldami. I think is the name of the dev studio. Wonderful people. And I've been in touch. Hopefully, we can have a little chat with them about the game, because it's a fantastic title, and I'm super excited about it.
Excellent. And Mark, what are you looking forward to?
Perhaps retreading the same ground from the start of the podcast tonight, but I'm really looking forward to just finishing off the Life is Strange with Reunion next week. So they've promised multiple endings, and I think that probably means multiple heartbreak, multiple boxes of tissues to go with it. But I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how they wrap up the story. And I'm just really intrigued to see how they're going to bring Chloe back. They've kind of told us how kind of fundamentally that works in the game and how it's tied to double exposure, but I don't want to give any spoilers there for those that haven't played it. But I'm really intrigued to see how they kind of bring her back for those like myself that chose to kill her off at the end of the original. And I'm looking forward to see how she gets on with Max's best friend Safi in the new one now. So yeah, it's going to be a ride, and I think I'm kind of ready now. I want to wrap it all up, and yeah, I've been on such a narrative game binge recently with the full series here, and the game you mentioned, Harry, Tell Me Why, which I've recently finished as well. So yeah, and yeah, really looking forward to that next week.
Yeah, I feel I should have ended with you, because that would have been nice and nice and tied in with you opening, closing it with Life is Strange. But hey, I'm not that aware, unfortunately, when I'm doing this show. So I am. I will finish this off with saying that I am really looking forward to a game called Piece by Piece. It is actually already out now, and I will clarify that it is a game by a studio called Neon Polygons, because, in a funny coincidence, two games called Piece by Piece released on the exact same day which is pretty crazy. They both look great. I decided to go with this one because it very much appeals to my puzzle sensibilities of messing around with sort of the space that you're in and things like that. It's a 2D puzzle game where you move jigsaw pieces around to move your character between them. But there's lots of different mechanics that get involved with being able to, rotate them, flip them over, layer them on top of each other, and your characters as well. I think that you can play as have like slightly different things that they can do, different abilities and things. And so yeah, looks really fun. Like simple, one of those ones that starts simple and progressively gets more and more complex. Cute little art style. Yeah, really, really interested to check it out. Over 100 or about 100 handcrafted levels, it says. So hopefully plenty of puzzling fun for me to enjoy for the next week or so. But yeah, that is what I'm looking forward to. And with
I think I
that,
heard something nice.
oh,
Sorry, Harry. I think I heard something nice that the developers got together and did a bundle for those games together. So they were
perfect.
like, yeah, well, we're called the same thing, so let's just collab and we'll do a bundle. You get both.
Absolutely.
I love
Indeed,
that.
I see it here on Steam by piece, double bundle. Perfect. Yeah, yeah, very cute. And yeah, and best of luck to both of them. Hopefully, they're both able to find success. It's tough out there, and it can't be any easier when you share the exact same name as another game. Oh dear. Talk about getting confused about when buying a game and getting the wrong one. That'd be embarrassing. But there we are. Anyway, that has been this week's episode of the Gamer Social Club Weekly News Podcast. I would like to thank everyone here for joining me for today's episode. Candy, V, Mark, thank you all so much. And thank you all of you at home or wherever you are for listening or watching. We greatly appreciate it. As always, please, if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a like. If you have anything you'd like to share with us, any feedback, any questions about today's episode, what games are you looking forward to? What game have you just played? What do you think of DLSS 5 and the shenanigans going on over there at Nvidia? Tell us in the comments below. And of course, if you want more content like this and as well as things like Girl Pod, please consider clicking that subscribe button even. Anyway, let's get out of here. Thank you everybody so much. Nearly made it the whole way. But yeah, thank you all again for so much for joining us. Take care of it. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, play some great games, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.